I cherished working beside each of you to reshape hearing accessibility across the board, but enough, Renaer snapped, his voice cutting sharply as he gestured toward the door. We don't have time for this. Leave now. 23 faces stared at me in stunned silence. My research team, brilliant iologists and engineers who'd stood with me for years, looked down at their laps or exchanged wide-eyed glances. No one spoke. No one moved. The presentation slides behind me still displayed our accomplishments. 83% improvement in speech recognition for those with moderate hearing loss. More than 5,000 people supported through our community clinics. Recognition from 3 international health organizations. I swallowed hard, heat crawling up my neck. 7 years of commitment dismissed in 7 seconds. I understand, I whispered, gathering my notes with trembling fingers as my heart pounded against my ribs. I closed my laptop, unplugged it, and slipped it into my bag. Raynor checked his watch impatiently. Installed as technical director only 6 weeks earlier, this was clearly the moment he'd been waiting for. I looked at my team one last time. Lena, our signal processing genius, tears streaming. Gustav, our oldest engineer, wiping his glasses furiously. Even Jace, stoic and reserved, jaw clenched so tightly the muscle twitched. It's been my greatest honor, I managed before walking out, my footsteps echoing in the heavy silence. Outside, spring sunlight felt like mockery. I reached my car before the first sob broke free, pressing my forehead to the steering wheel as my shoulders shook. Everything I'd built, the technology helping thousands hear their loved ones again, was now in the hands of someone who cared only about profit margins and quarterly charts. I started the engine and drove away from Audiovant's headquarters for what I believed was the last time, unaware that in less than 4 hours they'd be urgently calling me back. But first, I had somewhere far more important to be. Before we continue with what happened next, thank you for joining me on this journey. If you're enjoying this story, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories like this. Your support means everything, and I read every comment. Now let's return to what happened after I left Audiovance that morning. My name is Vienne. I'm 36, obsessively detail-oriented and passionate about sound. I grew up with a grandfather who gradually lost his hearing in his 60s, and I watched him withdraw from family gatherings because hearing aids made everything louder, not clearer. The technology failed him, and it was failing millions. After earning my double doctorate in iology and electrical engineering, I turned down lucrative offers from major tech firms to work at Audiovance, a mid-size hearing tech company willing to let me pursue my unconventional ideas about adaptive sound processing. When I arrived at the weekend hearing clinic I'd established in Riverdale, a neighborhood most corporations wouldn't consider worth their attention, I pushed everything else aside. The clinic operated in a renovated community center, nothing fancy but fully equipped to help people who'd fallen through gaps in the medical system. Mrs. Amelia Gonzalez waited for me, her weathered hands folded neatly. At 78, she'd spent 40 years as a violinist before slowly losing the higher frequencies in her hearing. I missed the appointment, didn't I? She asked, voice trembling. My bus was late. I checked the time, 10:15, though her appointment had been at 10. You're right on time, I lied gently, guiding her into the testing room. I have something special for you today. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Your granddaughter's recital is tomorrow, right? I asked, retrieving a small case from our prototype cabinet. Her eyes lit up. Yes, little Isabella, first chair violin at 8. I haven't heard her play clearly in 2 years. I opened the case, revealing 2 tiny devices. These use our newest adaptive algorithm. Instead of amplifying everything, they detect musical tones and enhance their natural quality. My phone buzzed again and again. I silenced it. For the next hour, I worked with Mrs. Gonzalez, fine-tuning the settings as she listened to violin recordings. When I played a Vivaldi piece, her favorite, tears welled in her eyes. I can hear the bow on the strings, she whispered. I had forgotten that sound. In that moment, although muted, my phone lit up repeatedly. 23 missed calls, 14 voicemails, 39 text messages. As Mrs. Gonzalez practiced inserting and removing the devices, I quickly scanned the messages. International Consortium arrived early, asking specifically for you, board, in emergency session, $80 million funding decision happening today. Where are you? Call immediately. The newest message came from the board chair himself. Critical situation. Your presence required urgently. I set the phone down and turned back to Mrs. Gonzalez. How does that feel? Comfortable? She nodded, glowing. Perfect. What do I owe you for these? They're part of our community testing program, I replied. All I ask is that you return next week and tell me how Isabella's recital goes. After Mrs. Gonzalez left, I saw 3 more patients: a retired construction worker with noise-induced hearing loss, a teenager with auditory processing struggles, and a bus driver fighting directional hearing issues. Each one reminded me why I'd structured my research the way I had. Real people with real challenges standard hearing aids couldn't solve. It was 2:30 p.m. when I finally checked my voicemails. Vienne, this is Harold Bennett. The board chair sounded strained. The Global Accessibility Consortium arrived this morning instead of next week. They're asking for you specifically. They won't meet with anyone else. Call me immediately. The next message? This is urgent. The consortium has an $80 million funding initiative, and they're deciding today. Rayner tried presenting, but they cut him off. They want your community integration model and the most recent updates. Whatever happened this morning was a misunderstanding. Your position remains open. Please come to headquarters as soon as possible. I leaned against the wall, absorbing everything. The Global Accessibility Consortium represented disability advocates and medical systems from 16 countries. They'd toured our community clinics and testing labs last month, impressed by our emphasis on affordability paired with innovation. And evidently, they'd made their choice. I called Bennett back. Where have you been? He demanded. Working with patients at the Riverdale clinic, the one Rayner called a waste of resources yesterday. We'll discuss priorities later, he muttered. The consortium refuses to meet with anyone else. Their funding depends on your involvement. I'm no longer with the company, I reminded him calmly, as was clearly demonstrated this morning. A regrettable miscommunication, Bennett rushed. What would it take to bring you back immediately? The question hung in the air. I'd prepared for many outcomes after being dismissed, but not this. In my mind, Audiovance had chosen its direction, prioritizing hospital contracts and expensive systems over accessibility for everyday people. But the consortium's interest meant I suddenly held unexpected leverage. I'm listening, Bennett prodded when I stayed silent. I thought of Mrs. Gonzalez hearing violin strings clearly for the first time in years, and of my team who believed in our purpose. I establish an independent accessibility division, I said. Community-based testing and distribution remain our primary strategy. My team reports directly to me, not through technical management. We can't restructure the entire company just because the consortium is focused on organizations with strong community integration, he objected. Then perhaps they'd prefer to support my independent venture instead, I cut in. A long silence followed before Bennett exhaled. Come to the office in 1 hour. We'll discuss specifics. I ended the call and sat in the quiet clinic room surrounded by tools and technology I'd helped design, emotions swirling, vindication, unease, and something darker I couldn't name. As I locked up, my phone buzzed. A text from Lena. What's happening? Board members are running around like panicked chickens. Rayner looks ready to explode. I replied, I'm coming back. Tell the team to wait. The drive to Audiovance headquarters took 30 minutes in afternoon traffic, time I used to steady myself and remember what really mattered. This wasn't about winning a corporate fight. It was about safeguarding work that could help millions. Walking through the lobby felt surreal. The same security guard who'd watched me leave in tears earlier now nodded respectfully. In the elevator, I caught my reflection, hair slightly messy, wearing jeans and a casual clinic blouse instead of my usual business attire. I hadn't dressed to impress. Perfect. When the doors opened on the executive floor, I saw Bennett with two board members, Adira and Wilson, their faces tight with panic. "They're in the demonstration lab," Bennett said without preamble. "We told them you were at a community outreach event, which apparently impressed them even more." "Who exactly is here?" I asked as we hurried down the hallway. "Teresa Ling, the consortium's head, representatives from health systems in Germany, Brazil, and Japan, two patient advocacy directors. They're evaluating technologies for their next major funding initiative." I nodded, processing, and Bennett grimaced. Rayner tried presenting our new hospital-focused direction. Miss Ling stopped him 15 minutes in and asked where you were. We reached the lab door, and Bennett placed a hand on my arm. "Vienne, the company needs this funding. Whatever happened this morning was not a miscommunication," I interrupted. "It was a deliberate choice. And now you're making another one." I pushed open the door to find 6 people gathered around our demonstration table, where my latest prototype rested. Our third-generation adaptive processor, built to map individual hearing profiles and adjust in real time to shifting sound environments. Teresa Ling, a small woman with sharp eyes and a commanding reputation in accessibility advocacy, looked up first. "Dr. Rhodes," she greeted, extending her hand. "Your absence was concerning." "My apologies. I was fitting one of our community members with a prototype, an elderly musician hearing her granddaughter's violin clearly for the first time in years." Teresa's expression softened. "That's exactly what we came to discuss. While your colleagues focused on revenue projections, we'd prefer to hear about real impact." Over the next hour, I demonstrated our technology, explaining how our methods diverged from standard hearing aids. Instead of basic amplification, our system analyzed sound patterns and enhanced clarity based on personal needs. I presented research data from our neighborhood clinics, showing improvements in quality of life. "The most significant breakthrough isn't just technical," I explained, displaying clinic outcomes. "It's distribution. By embedding community testing sites, we've reached people who would otherwise never access traditional audiological services." Dr. Himura from Japan nodded. "This matches what we saw at your Westside clinic last month. Participants spoke highly of your direct involvement." From the corner of my eye, I noticed Renair shifting uneasily, clearly unaware of their prior visit. "We're interested in your plans for scaling this model," Teresa said. "Our funding initiative aims to expand hearing accessibility across varied populations and income brackets." I drew a steady breath. "I've actually developed a full expansion framework for community-based distribution and training local technicians. I'd be glad to walk you through it." "Excellent," Teresa smiled. "We have time now if you're available." Bennett stepped forward. "Perhaps we should review internally first." "Dr. Rhodes seems perfectly capable of presenting her own work," Teresa cut in coolly. "Unless there's a reason she shouldn't." The room tightened with tension. Bennett backed down with a strained smile. "No reason at all." For the next 2 hours, I outlined my vision while consortium members asked insightful questions. When Teresa finally rose, signaling the meeting's end, she turned to Bennett. "We'll finalize our decision by day's end. Dr. Rhodes's approach aligns closely with our mission of making assistive technology truly accessible." After they departed, the executive team assembled in the conference room. The atmosphere had shifted dramatically since the morning. "Clearly, we need to reevaluate our strategy," Bennett began carefully. Renair leaned forward. "With respect, chasing foundation funding is short-sighted. Real revenue lies in medical partnerships." "The consortium's $80 million would fund operations for 2 years, Adira countered, "and open pathways to their international healthcare networks." The debate continued as I remained silent, letting them talk around me. Finally, Bennett faced me. "Vienne, what are your terms?" I slid a document across the table. "They're outlined here. Independent division with direct board reporting. My team reinstated to previous roles. Expansion of the community program. and Rayner removed from any oversight of my work. Renner's face reddened. This is ridiculous. You can't restructure leadership over a single potential grant. It's not about the grant, I replied evenly. It's about this company's purpose. Do we exist to help people hear better or to maximize shareholder returns? Those aren't mutually exclusive, Wilson argued. They are when you target only those who can afford premium prices, I answered. Our technology can help millions ignored by major hearing aid manufacturers. Bennett studied the document. Some of these terms exceed reasonable limits. Then decline them, I said softly. The consortium seemed quite interested when I mentioned possibly launching an independent venture. The room fell silent. You wouldn't, Renner challenged. I met his stare without blinking. I built this technology. I designed the testing model. I trained the team. Are you sure you want to gamble on what I will or won't do? 1 hour later, after fierce negotiations, Bennett signed the agreement establishing my autonomous division with protected methodology and funding. The official announcement would come tomorrow, but effective immediately, I was reinstated with expanded authority. As I walked toward my old lab, I spotted Renaer in the hallway. He stepped into my path. Enjoy your victory lap, he muttered. But remember, this company ultimately answers to shareholders, not charity cases. Your approach won't last. I regarded him steadily. Is that why you tried to dismantle 7 years of my work in 6 weeks? I was hired to make this company profitable. No, I corrected. You were hired to be the board's tool when they panicked about quarterly numbers, but you overplayed your hand. His eyes darkened. This isn't over, Vienne. On that, we agree, I replied, brushing past him. When I entered the lab, my entire team was waiting. Their faces brightened instantly, and Lena rushed forward to hug me. What happened? Gustav asked, adjusting his glasses. 1 minute you're being pushed out, the next the board is in chaos. I explained the consortium situation, watching confusion turn to joy. So we're back? All of us? Jace, our quietest member, asked. Yes, and with more independence than we've ever had. We'll report directly to the board. Meaning, Lena grinned, not through Rayner. That must be killing him. He's been reassigned to regulatory compliance, I confirmed, effectively removed from product development. The celebration that erupted afterward felt cathartic. Laughter faded into a quiet hum, a mix of relief and disbelief settling over the room as we realized we were back, stronger and sharper than before. After the others left, Lena lingered and quietly revealed that Rayner had been trying to patent modifications to my designs under his own name and telling investors our community programs were being phased out. I nodded, having suspected as much. When she asked if I wasn't furious after how close he came to destroying everything, I looked around the lab at our prototypes, testing equipment, and the wall of letters from people we'd helped, and told her anger wasn't productive. Understanding motivation was. She studied me, noting I seemed more strategic now, and wondering if she should be worried, but I assured her she shouldn't be, not if she stayed on my team. In the following weeks, we settled back into our rhythm as the consortium announced the $80 million funding for Audiovance, and my division expanded with new experts dedicated to accessible technology. Outwardly, it looked like I had won. My work restored, my mission validated, even magazines calling me the innovator, reshaping hearing accessibility. Yet beneath it all, I hadn't forgotten how easily 7 years of work had nearly been erased, or how disposable I'd been made to feel. Rayner remained at Audiovance, diminished but not defeated, watching me with unreadable expressions during board meetings as tensions simmered between us. 3 months later, Teresa Ling invited me to speak at the global conference in Singapore, including a private note suggesting we discuss my future beyond Audiovance, a note I kept to myself. The night before my flight, while preparing slides, I stumbled upon a board meeting agenda that revealed a secret plan to reevaluate my division's autonomy during my absence, sent only to board members and Rayner. A cold calm settled over me, realizing the game was still ongoing. Gustav texted about strange finance meetings hinting at restructuring, and I instructed him to stay quiet until morning. While packing, I slipped an external hard drive of information I'd quietly collected into my suitcase, insurance, though I knew it was more than that, because sometimes protecting what matters means being willing to burn everything else down. The next morning, Gustav showed me emails between Reiner and finance about reallocating resources once I left the country, and though he was alarmed, I simply told him I expected it and needed his help before catching my flight. With my trusted inner circle, we prepared contingency materials, and by the time I reached the airport, they knew their roles perfectly. On the 14-hour flight, I refined my presentation while thinking about how predictable the board's betrayal was, even after the consortium's validation. That evening in Singapore, Teresa met me at the hotel, and after confirming my materials were ready, we talked over dinner about Audiovance's stock, its rise after the funding announcement, and its decline as investors realized community-first innovation meant slower growth. And she observed that shareholders think only in profits, while innovators think in people, which led to the real conversation she had brought me there to have. The consortium was establishing an independent research entity focused solely on accessibility technology without shareholder pressure, and my chopsticks paused mid-air as Teresa explained it would be a nonprofit institute with sustainable funding through licensing and partnerships, mission-driven rather than profit-driven, and that they needed a founding director with technical depth and unwavering commitment to accessibility. The implication was clear, and I responded carefully, noting how interesting the proposition was given certain developments at Audiovance, prompting Teresa to narrow her eyes and ask whether there were problems with my supposed autonomy. I simply said autonomy meant different things to different people. We discussed the consortium's vision, its structure designed to protect research integrity while ensuring financial stability, and by the end of dinner, I had a formal offer to build something entirely new, free from corporate interference. She advised me to take time, but I told her my decision might come sooner than expected. The next morning, the Global Accessibility Conference opened with more than 2,000 attendees from 60 countries, and as I waited backstage for my session, Lena sent me the slides Reiner was presenting to the board. An optimization strategy focused on maximizing returns, centralizing control, shifting back to hospital sales, and explicitly recommending the reintegration of my autonomous division. Instead of panicking, I felt a cold serenity as I stepped onto the stage. My talk began with technical data, how adaptive processing improved speech recognition, and how community testing produced superior real-world optimization. But the room shifted when I told them why the work mattered, showing Mrs. Gonzalez at her granddaughter's recital and sharing stories of the retired teacher rejoining her book club, the young man who could finally navigate workplace conversations, and the grandmother hearing her grandchild clearly for the first time. The audience fell silent, fully engaged, and I told them accessibility triumphed because we built technology with communities, not just for them. Then I made the announcement that would change everything. The formation of the Adaptive Hearing Initiative, an independent R&D organization dedicated to accessible hearing technology regardless of income. Funded initially by private donors, built on a licensing model prioritizing affordability, expanding globally through local partnerships. Teresa gave me a subtle nod. We had finalized everything over breakfast, her fast-tracking the consortium's support after I revealed Audiovance's intentions. And I told the audience the initiative would launch next month with labs in 3 countries and testing sites in 12 cities, and that I would serve as founding director. Applause erupted, and while industry leaders approached me with partnership offers at the reception, my phone filled with frantic messages from Bennett and the board. Lena updated me in real time. The board meeting had been interrupted by consortium representatives demanding an emergency session. Hours later, as I discussed implementation with healthcare providers from rural India, Bennett finally called, demanding to know what I had done. I calmly explained that I had given a presentation about accessible hearing technology and asked which part bothered him. He shouted that I'd announced a competing organization without warning and that the consortium was redirecting 40% of their funding. 50%, I corrected, telling him the announcement would be public tomorrow. When he accused me of breaching my contract, I reminded him that Section 12.8 exempted nonprofit accessibility research, a clause I had insisted upon during renegotiation. Silence followed until he finally realized I had planned for this. I clarified that I had simply prepared for what he intended to do during my absence. He insisted the board never voted on changes, but I pointed out Rayner's presentation clearly outlined them. After another pause, he asked what I wanted. I told him I wanted nothing from Audiovance, since my resignation was already submitted, but that my team deserved better. When he asked what that meant, I explained that 16 of Audiovance's top audiologists and engineers had already received offers from the initiative, competitive pay, research freedom, and genuine commitment to their work. And I could almost hear him doing the math, calculating the talent drain, the funding loss, and the shareholder fallout that would soon erupt. "You've been preparing your departure since the day you came back," he said, fury finally slipping through his disbelief. "No," I corrected him. "I gave Audiovance every opportunity to uphold our agreement. But while I was creating hearing devices for people who relied on them, Rayner was constructing a case to dismantle everything we'd built. You made your decision. Now I'm making mine." I ended the call and returned to the reception, where Teresa introduced me to more consortium members eager to champion the initiative. By the end of the evening, our funding was locked in, our first research sites confirmed, and our leadership team beginning to form. Later that night, alone in my hotel room, I received one last message from Lena. Rayner just emptied his office. Boer asked for his resignation after an emergency session. Gustav and I accepted our offers. 14 others did as well. When do we begin? I smiled, feeling years of weight fall from my shoulders. We already have. 2 weeks later, I stood inside our new headquarters, a refurbished warehouse with research labs, meeting rooms, and an open concept layout that encouraged collaboration. The Adaptive Hearing Initiative's mission statement hung in the entryway: clear sound for every ear, accessible to every person. Our team, now expanded to 30 researchers and technicians, buzzed with energy as they arranged equipment and testing stations. Many had followed me from Audiovance, but others came from universities, rival companies, and health systems drawn to our purpose. Audio's stock had fallen 18% since my announcement. Industry analysts doubted their ability to meet the consortium's expectations with their diminished research staff. Rayner had vanished from the field entirely, his reputation stained by what financial news tactfully described as strategic negligence. As I walked through our community testing area, where real people would help shape our technology, Teresa stepped beside me. "The first community sites open next week," she remarked. "Impressive pace. We're building on proven foundations," I replied. "And driven people move fast," she studied me quietly. "You never actually wanted revenge on Audiovance, did you?" I reflected on this as we watched my team fine-tuning equipment, their enthusiasm unmistakable. No, I wanted to safeguard the work. The people who rely on this technology don't care about corporate maneuvering. "Still, I can't ignore the poetry in it," Teresa said. "They tried to silence you twice, and each time it only strengthened your voice. And now the hearing of thousands more." I smiled at the imagery. In acoustics, we call that constructive interference, when waves align to make something more powerful than either could create alone. 2 days later, we welcomed our first community participants, including Mrs. Gonzalez, who agreed to help test our newest music-focused algorithms. As she settled into the testing space, she noticed our mission statement. "This is why I followed you here," she said, adjusting her device. "At Audiovance, I was a patient. Here, I'm a partner." In that instant, Seeing her eagerness to contribute, I knew without question that I'd made the right call. Not just for myself or for my team, but for everyone who deserved to hear the world with clarity. Thank you for staying with me through this whole story. If you connected with VN's journey of resilience and purpose, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to be muted. I'd love to hear in the comments about a moment when you turned a setback into something even stronger than what you originally lost. Remember, sometimes the most powerful reaction to being interrupted isn't to raise your voice, it's to transform the entire conversation.